making a plan gives you the space to and the time to actually sit down and purposefully think about what you want in life, who you want to be.
Welcome back to Culture Chats. I'm Camealia Xavier-Chihota, the social media and marketing director at the Digital Voice. And for Black History Month, we are spotlighting some brilliant Black voices across the industry. And no less, I am joined today with Nick Fettiplace, MD at Jellyfish. Welcome, Nick, and thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Without further ado, tell me more about your entry into the industry and who's inspired motivated your progression and ambitions.
I entered the industry really through starting starting my own business. I'd been working in television for quite some time as a production manager for kind of broadcast television company. And it was at the time when the internet was starting to open up and there was lots of opportunity. So I really stepped into the marketing and digital marketing element through setting up my own business.
What was it called?
It was called Shade 3. I remember saying to my mum at the time, I said, actually, I'm going to start my own business. I really don't, I know I'm good at something. I know I have a strong work ethic. I know I can achieve a lot, but I don't like the corporate thing. At the time, media, marketing, there weren't many people from diverse backgrounds. Yeah, I just said, I know I can contribute. I know I can achieve, but I just don't feel comfortable in corporate environments. So actually, I'm going to start my own thing. I'm going to grow my dreadlocks. I can look how I want to look.
How long ago was this?
20 years ago. It was really at the start of all the kind of, the real start of that kind of digital, push and, a digital first world.
It sounds like you motivated yourself, but you was motivated by lack of representation in the industry, maybe, that was making you uncomfortable.
Yeah, it definitely does. And so I think that comes back to the other part to your question, not the bit about how did I get in, but what inspired me. I think I'd have a really tough time to say that I could drill it down to a particular person or a particular moment. But I think a lot of what I can purposely acknowledge as being inspiration definitely comes from my heritage and definitely comes from the early years of growing up and spending my childhood in Jamaica, where I was born. And that's definitely a root of a lot of my inspiration. And I can absolutely connect the things that I saw, the experiences that I was part of in Jamaica to my work ethic today. It feels like the two go hand in hand. I genuinely believe that not only did I grow up in an incredible country, but actually I think that the 80s in Jamaica was quite a significant time. There was a lot going on, good and bad. The 80s was a time where there was significant interference or destabilization from foreign governments and foreign countries in Jamaica. It was rough politics, it was social conflict, and a lot of where I gained my inspiration, I think, comes from that time. Some of what inspired me were all the wonderful and beautiful things that you can imagine of Jamaica or that everybody would associate to Jamaica. But then actually at the same time, a lot of what also inspired me were the challenging environments or situations that, you were exposed to at that time in Jamaica. The inspiration that they provide is almost, how do I never live those situations again? Or how do I make sure that my kids never grow up to see some of those things or be in some of those scenarios? So it's kind of a world of good and bad. And I think you take your inspiration from the positive and also some of those negative things.
It sounds like some of your perspective as a parent even might be relevant to the next question, which is what unique approach has being from Jamaica given you in your career?
I think I'm a nice person. I get the feedback that people enjoy working with me, and I think that's.
I concur.
Oh, thank you. But I feel compassion. I always try and be compassionate with everyone who I'm working with. Look, we expect a lot from the teams that we work with, but everybody is probably going through something in their life, whether that's something positive or something challenging. So I think compassion is really important. I think that really inspired me about growing up at that time in Jamaica was the community, seeing communities coming together. And in many times, the communities and the support that I had in Jamaica was not just from the people who you think are the most empowered to give it is actually often from communities and people who are far less privileged than I might have been. And so that's quite striking, and that's quite special when you really see people of all, from all echelons of society, coming together and helping and supporting. I think that definitely, support and being hands-on is something that I am today in my profession. I think that really comes from some of the experiences I had as a kid. I think leadership, at that time, it came in so many forms, right? There were political leaders, there were street culture leaders, there was musical leaders, and they all had their different styles and their different perspectives. And I think that what I found after time, particularly in those environments that I said I didn't want to be in I didn't like that corporate thing. Actually, over time, what some of those experiences taught me was actually you can apply your own style of leadership to how you operate. You just need to be true to who you are and be transparent and authentic with people. And actually, I think that the difference in leadership is actually something which we should celebrate, and which we do celebrate. And so what was initially something which was uncomfortable for me actually became something, as I kind of embraced who I was more and was true to myself, that leadership became easier.
And as you said, there was plenty of different styles of leadership for you to look up to and then apply in your career.
The humor, the hustle,
Yeah.
the hard work, I think that all of those different styles, seeing those different styles make you feel comfortable with bringing your own style.
So you touch on leadership there, and that brings me nicely onto my last question, which is about the type of advice you'd like to give to the next generation and how you would encourage others to step into their power, as the theme for Black History Month this year is uh, standing firm in power and pride.
If I was to give one piece of advice to encourage others to step into power, I think it's something that I live by, and I've lived by, for since I was in my late teens, is have a plan. And I know that sounds so basic and so obvious, but for me, planning really has underpinned the way that I've developed professionally and personally. I think that a plan, it may always change and adapt, but it's it gives, making a plan gives you the space to actually and the time to actually sit down and purposefully think about what you want in life, who you want to be, what you want to achieve, how you want to contribute to the world around us and the people around us. And so I think that, so many times I feel that people, especially young people, as they're trying to, find a path, a plan gives you a framework that you can measure your progress against. But most importantly for me, I see a plan as being, it's like a compass and a map, because every now and again, life is so busy, our jobs are so busy, our commitments, our family lives are so busy. Every now and again, you can kind of be like, wow, where am I again? Like, is it, I can't see the wood from the tree.
Everything you've just said really resonated with me because coming from quite a low socio-economic background, I had to base my ambitions on wanting to come out of that, right? So I had very parents who valued education and said, yes, you do need a plan, you do need to have a career plan. And my mum wanted me to be a doctor, but did I want to be a doctor? No. So that forced me to decide, what are you working towards? And I decided I was working towards being a fashion buyer. And did I achieve that? Yes. But am I doing it now? No. And I think the next generation need to know that it doesn't have to, you don't have to stick to the plan, but make a new plan and it can evolve. And, I think they call it squiggly career paths now. I like to call it curly career paths because it's a bit like my hair. But I think that you're right. Make a plan. That's a great piece of advice to give to the next generation, because all too often I work with young people who don't know what they want to do, but they also don't see the representation that they can be anything, that they're sort of limited. And I think it's important for people like you and I to show that you can be anything, you can change, you can evolve, and yeah, you can achieve.
Planning is, I think, is so important. And so what works for me is I kind of almost have these like there's a long-term plan. So there's like 10 years or even 15, it might be like what do I want my life to feel like or to be like. And then you start to break that down into smaller blocks. There's like a more medium term block, the whole way down to like a 6 to 12 month block. So and when you look at each of those milestones or each of those kind of components to your overall plan, you often have to pivot and change things, or you learn things about yourself. You're right, I realized I thought I really wanted that, maybe I don't. And so you change it. But I think in having an overarching plan and having these components that make it up, it gives you the ability to have a short-term view, a medium-term view, and then a longer-term structure, in terms of how you get to that end goal. And it's funny, when I started doing this, it's like, right, I have to sit down and have to write everything out. But I think that it becomes more intuitive over time, to the point where I just have notes, and it's just a lot of it's in my head now. It's become so it's like a muscle memory in terms of how I plan now. But
If you've got a plan, you know how you're going to get to the end result of how you want your life to look, how you want to feel, then how you get there is up to you. But Nick, thank you so much for joining our culture chats this evening.
thank you so much for having me.
I look forward to catching up with you soon.
All right, great. You too.
Thank you for tuning into Culture Chats. We'll be back with more brilliant perspectives shortly. So see you soon.